Starting. Hey, there we go. Hi, welcome to Cold Reads. I am Laura Nicole, the host of Cold Reads. As you well know, you're used to seeing my face. Today, we are going to kind of rush through things because this chapter is actually a little bit longer, and I do want to keep it to about half an hour. Wow, I forgot that I have a thing going on. There we go. Now there's no noise. So again, this is Cold Reads, where myself and sometimes some of my voice actory type friends come and read chapters from various books. Right now we are doing Stonebriar Casefiles Bad Alchemy. And today we've got with us my friend Greg How of Everstar. Hi, Greg.
Hi, Laura.
And Greg is the mysterious man in black because his camera is not working, which is fine.
Great about the revenge business.
Well, you know. So tell us a little bit about Everstar and what you do.
Actually, Everstar has gone through a bit of a change. I've started up my own audio production, editing, engineering company up in Amherst, Mass. And Everstar was a project that I was doing a Song of the Week on. And just this week, which was a year from starting the project to begin with, I've stopped doing a Song a Week project because now I want to actually get into the point where I'm able to collaborate and work with people much more extensively. And I want to get some songs that are more thought out and meticulous as opposed to rushed and kind of caricatures of what.
Right. And that, you know, that's kind of awesome because you and I really started thinking about our different projects around the same time. You just got yours off the ground a lot faster than I did.
Yeah.
And Resonant Moon, while you do the music side, Resonant Moon does the audiobook side, and it's really cool. And I've really enjoyed seeing your business take off, which is awesome.
Thank you.
So today we are going to go ahead and get into chapter 5 of Stonebriar Casefiles, and I am going to have you read the part of Turek. Now, Turek is my absolute favorite character to write. He is a goblin who is part of a group called the Watch. So he's friends with Beatrix Stonebriar, and he's very old worldy, so think kind of old English, but recently he's been exposed to TV, and police procedurals is particularly his jam because of his work with the Watch and investigating things.
So NCIS troll.
I'm sorry, what?
So he's an NCIS goblin.
Yes, exactly. So, you know, when you do get to those lines, kind of bring them in, but you're still very old worldy. It doesn't sound quite right in your mouth, even though you know that's what you always hear them say. So that's where we're at. And I know you do a lot of fun voices with your DMing through Dungeons and Dragons. So I think this is going to be a fun read.
I'm excited.
All right, so your stuff is in yellow. I'm going to go ahead and have everybody look at this. There we go. And we're going to go ahead and get started. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Chapter 5. The next morning, I left at first light. Although it was early, many of the Fae were already up and about doing their various callings. At the sight of me, I knew the effects of the parsley had worn off. Disdain and fear clouded their faces. One woman called out from her garden, "That's right. Leave again, Stonebriar. You bring nothing but trouble to us, root cutter." It was Vervain Oakroot. She was one of the nosy individuals that I knew would have something to say about my return. Even though I had expected her reaction, for some reason, it stung a little deeper. "I'm going to find out who did this. When I bring them to justice, I hope you'll be able to appreciate what I will do to defend our people." I had no other words to share. The residents of the wood knew my intent. They may not like it, but they knew I would come back, hopefully with answers. The flight of the flight to the Silver Park did not take long. It was the greater part of the Elder Wood. Usually fairies were able to deter humans enough so that they did not wander further into territory that they would not be able to understand. I let myself reminisce on better times in the Elder Wood. I covered grounds that I had traveled long before with my long-gone friends. I wrote some really weird phrases here, so hang on. Most were those that I had made through solving mysteries and intrigues over time. Many had joined me when I was sent to the human lands once our world had been exposed. Each of them was an adventurer in their own right. Like me, they did not exactly belong with their own kind, but in our strange way, we were the kindred that we had needed at the time. Now I flew the path without the comfort of intelligent conversation, at least for a time. A rustling in the undergrowth caught my attention. I continued flying. If I was being hunted, I would not stand still like a doe. Then something tickled my nose. A faint odor covered by dirt. Slowing down, I let the tracker gain on me. When I stopped, it did too. With a burst of strength, I shot up in the air as the fern behind me burst forth, producing a mud-covered creature with mangled hands and dark green skin. In its haste, it missed the right timing, and instead of catching me, landed smack into the tree trunk. "You're getting better, Turek, but you're still too loud." I lowered to just behind his head. As the goblin pulled his face away from the tree, his face started to bleed a little. I started to use a healing spell, but he put his hand up.
No!
He felt his face and took in a deep breath from his nose. A grin unfurled across his face.
My nose! I can breathe through it!
Finally, Turek Mudrain looked at me. There were still a few cuts on him, but the impact had moved his cartilage enough that he didn't have to breathe through his mouth for most of his There were still a few cuts on him, but the impact had moved his cartilage enough that he didn't have to breathe through his mouth, like most of his race. The long nose did come down a little past his upper lip now, but I supposed he would get used to it and how eating would be affected. "How are you, old man?" I asked, pleased to see a familiar face.
You are back, and this pleases me. When you, Eric, and Nanya went off to the human world, I had none to practice trafficking with or join me in the hunt.
He mimicked a childlike voice that reminded me a little of Dorian when he would get into a fit.
But in all truth, I've had to practice on mine own. 'Tis not as entertaining to travel without anyone to banter with anymore.
Are you keeping up the watch, then?
'Tis a task to do so without the rest of you lot to help me. But I manage. Most of the folk are so intent on the workings of the outside world that they do not bother to try to find a way in. It is the affairs within the wood that have me concerned of late.
He rubbed his brow. When he looked at his blood-smeared hand, he gave me a nod to heal him. Don't worry, I'll leave the nose alone, I said as my mind worked through the incantation of healing.
It's fortunate we crossed paths. I found a patch of wild tulips, and there were several tulip heads that were severed off. I found it last eve, but then some drunkards were chasing a water nymph, and I had to fend them off.
I finished the spell and took a moment to regain my strength. Healers who used these spells on a regular basis pulled their energy from the beyond. For me, it it was all my reserves that went into patching up Turek. I had forgotten what it felt like. I had forgotten what that felt like. I know all about it. I didn't bother to hide any I didn't bother to hide the heaviness in my heart. They left the tulip heads in front of my tree.
They did not.
Turek's face would have been priceless if it were a joke. His usually keen eyes and sly smile were replaced by that of a dumbfounded, well, Dorian wouldn't want me to use the word idiot, but it certainly fit his expression.
But that's foul. Wrong. Bad enough they cut a whole bushel of life out of existence, but to put them on someone's door.
The slack jaw turned into a sneer. Calm down, Turek.
Tricks, they're trying to pin you.
Heat rose in his face, and I could swear I saw his ears start to change color. Be still, I said in the old tongue. Poor Turek was trying to use modern speech, but it didn't fit well. I think you mean pin this on me. Regardless, the case won't get solved if we lose our heads. I sighed and pondered for a moment. We were only an hour from the silver bark. On the other hand, if I could see the other crime scene, I might be able to put together more pieces of the puzzle. Internally, I nodded and turned to my goblin friend. Has anyone else seen the crime scene other than you?
Not a soul till I saw you.
Right. Well, let's not wait for the moss to cover us. Lead on. Turek turned me to the west, and we set out with the rising sun at our backs.
So what brings you our way, Trix? I'd have thought you'd pleased as a troll and muck out there with the humans.
Believe me, Turek, it's no bed of roses working out there. But in comparison to here, it is paradise. The only friendly face I've seen here is your ugly mug. I winked at him.
Oh, come now, fairy. You know green is the color of your desire. Admit it, you came back looking for me.
I laughed. You're right. I can no longer deny that you are the only one for me, so long as you keep caking yourself with mud. That moment of levity took me back to a time that I had thought long forgotten, a time where I had purpose with my own kind and was not always so hated, roaming the forest with my band of misfits. We were the best at protecting our borders. Outcasts from our own people, we found family together. I was the only fairy without a green thumb. Turek had no mind for mechanics like the rest of his kin, but made up for it with his sharp tongue and keen senses for tracking above ground. Eric Moonrunner was our diplomat. The least self-absorbed elf of the wood, was humble and could see things from another's perspective, making him extremely useful when we were in a tight spot. So much bloodshed had been avoided because of him. Nomina was the only centaur to mingle with outsiders. She was our intimidator, but as gentle as a summer breeze. Together we fulfilled an unspoken need. We were rarely acknowledged by other magics, but they knew that we did the work that no other would unless asked. It was a fine time for all of us, but after my blunder with the human world, we all had to go our separate ways. Turek loved the woods more than the rest of us. He would never leave it unguarded. Through his snarky exterior, he was still a tree lover. So, I see you took Nomina's advice about masking your scent with mud.
Yes, and that half-mad hoofhead knew what she was talking about.
He winced.
Do not tell her I said that. She needs no inflated ego.
I smiled. She's out in the Rocky Mountains anyway, working on avalanche rescue group.
Why do avalanches need rescuing?
Not the avalanches, but the people caught in them. I had missed his snark. You ass!
So literal, even after all these years. Honestly, Trix, have those humans taught you nothing?
They keep trying. The trees opened up into a meadow. Turek turned us north, but stayed close to the tree line. I could see a small gathering of red and orange up ahead, and took the lead. As we approached, I could see where Turek had come up. His long footprints were easy to distinguish. It would be difficult to determine any spells that had been used in the area since this place was full of magic. Turek, can you take a walk around the tree line for any fresh footprints or anything out of the ordinary? He nodded and slowly turned toward the trees, scanning the ground intently. In the meantime, I started looking over the remaining area. The sun was in my eyes, so I couldn't get a good look at the ground just yet. I would need to wait until it got higher. The tulips had been severed and were not taken in a bunch, which surprised me. I took a look at the stems. They were much further decayed than I would have thought for tulips cut only one day before. It dawned on me that the tulips may have been sick to begin with. Was it someone's idea of an act of mercy? And what about leaving them at my tree? This one clue left me with more questions than answers. A wind picked up and lifted the stems of the plants to reveal a couple of shiny strands of hair. I looked them over for a moment, realizing that they were I looked at them for a moment, thinking that they were simply spider threads that went astray. But as the sun glinted on them, I realized that they weren't quite the right color. Before they could fly away, I snagged one in my hand and put my foot on the other to hold it in place. The first one I picked up was coarse, but it had some type of plastic coating on it. The brown color that had faded in certain areas, the brown color had faded in certain areas. It was a human hair, all right, and if it was a human in the Elderwood, that could mean a lot more trouble than just some crazy murderer. The second strand was also a hair. Instead of the dingy brown pigment, it held the light much like metal. Indeed, it folded around itself like thinly wrapped foil of platinum. I wrapped both hairs individually and placed them carefully in my pack.
Trix!
Turek called.
There's something here in the dirt.
Following his voice, I was able to see that what he was looking at. Some of the remaining grass had been bent, as though two people were on their knees facing each other. The soil itself had some white discolorations, like salt deposits. What I wouldn't give to have a field test kit right about now.
You mean you don't have one on hand?
He asked incredulously. It was true that when we were on the watch together, I was always prepared. The irony of the situation was not lost on me, but it was certainly frustrating. I wasn't expecting to have a crime scene on my hands when I got back. I was sent here on sabbatical while things cooled down in the human world. He gave me a perplexed look. Apparently, he hadn't heard. Someone tried to kill me last month. There was silence as he looked me up and down. I will tell you on the way to the Silver Bark. I don't think there's much else I can gather here. We were taking a longer route to the Silver Bark than we planned, but there was a lot to tell. I went through all of the cases that led up to the final case, where Haggerty had found out that I was onto him.
Did he actually say the words?
Turek was enraptured with my story. I nodded. It was not exactly an experience I was looking forward to reliving in my head. My heart still raced at the memory of not being able to breathe and the excruciating pain. Another silence passed between us, and Turek seemed to process what I had said. On the plus side, Dorian is working on some way for fairies to protect themselves from that danger. I can only hope that he can get it finished before the details of the case are spoken aloud in court.
He sounds like a bright lad. I'm sure he'll think of something.
In the light of the forest, the light in the forest ahead was brighter, reflecting off of the birch bark.
What is it the humans say? This your stop?
Something like that. I huffed a chuckle. You're not coming with me?
Gods, no!
He replied in an instant.
You think I want to get in there with those high and mighty blowhards? Think again, sister.
You've started watching television, haven't you? I smirked at him. He shrugged.
Goblins are good at mechanics, and apparently electronics too. They let me watch to keep me out of their way. I cannot complain about that.
He winked.
I'll meet up with you tomorrow night at the Willow Well, yes?
Thanks, Turek. I'll catch up with you there. Do you think you could try to track them with this scent? I handed him the human hair to smell. He quirked his head quirked.
Human, sweaty, hormonal, and what is that?
I took a whiff as well. Lavender oil.
He must be trying to calm himself down or something.
He said as I tucked the hair back into my bag.
I'll keep the scent in mind on my patrols. No promises, though. I didn't get any kind of scent from the scene when we were there.
But you weren't looking for one either.
True. See you tomorrow night.
I waved after him as he jaunted back into the underbrush. Then I turned and made my way to the hold of the northern elves. And so that's everything. That's chapter 5. Way to go. Well done, Greg.
Thank you. It was fun.
Yeah, you did awesome. I know why I tripped up, and that's because I had a little too much wine before I started, which is a thing you should not do. But we had.
Wine makes it go more fun.
It did make it a lot more fun, but it also made me trip on words that are always problematic for me.
Right.
So that's a thing. But yeah, we had white wine shrimp tonight, and I had to finish the bottle because because you do.
Wasting wine is criminal.
It is a crime. It's alcohol abuse.
Exactly.
And I do not condone abuse of alcohol. So anyway, what did you think of that?
That was a lot of fun. I had a great time. Thank you.
And so how is that as like a cold read? Now you have a lot of improvisation experience through your DMing. Do you think that helped you prepare for this?
That was part of it. I've also done like some improv acting and acting previously, so that it definitely helped. And then a little, getting a little bit of a lead up from you about the character.
Yeah.
That was very, very beneficial for reading him.
Awesome. Well, I hope I can have you back to do tour because that was amazing and way better than what I could do.
I would love to. I'd be honored. I like that voice.
Awesome. Well, I will let you know the next time he shows up, and we'll see if we can get you back in here.
I look forward to it. Thank you.
Awesome. So where can people find your stuff before we go?
Right now, pretty much everything for Everstar is going to be on my Facebook page, which is www.facebook.com/Everstar Music, EVERSTARMUSIC. Yeah, that's the best place.
Awesome.
There may be some updates coming there soon because the full production company is going to start getting branded.
Fantastic. I look forward to seeing that. And this show is presented by Resonant Moon Audiobook Solutions, which you can find at resonantmoon.com. This podcast is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 International License. Yes, that's right. This time I did actually look it up. So that means that you can share it, you can download it, you just can't edit it, and if you do share it, you need to link it back to this YouTube page. Please feel free to subscribe. I look forward to having more voice actors, more authors, more stories coming up. And for the month of August, you're going to have something every day to listen to or watch, whichever you prefer. So thank you so much for joining us. Thanks to my wonderful guest, Greg. And I wish you all the best in the future and look forward to having you on the show in the future. And so now it's Sunday, so we've got to go watch Game of Thrones. So
Sunday.
have a good night, everybody.